Today, let's look at the find command and some of the very interesting things that you can do with it. Uh, let's just start by reminding you of the basic syntax of find. So we'll use find and then the starting directory, which in this case we can just use the shortcut symbol for our home directory, the tilde, one of the very popular flags of name, and then the name of the file that we'd like to find. We can also use some of the regular expressions, like the asterisk, to match any number of characters. So let's look for all files, all really anything underneath our home location that ends in txt. And we can see there's quite a few, probably more than you had imagined, because find drills down through the entire hierarchy underneath that starting location to find all of the files. Now, sometimes we may not be completely sure about the capitalization or lowercase in our file name, and this is where we can use the iname flag. So let's just imagine that we're not sure whether we have downloaded something perhaps from a Windows computer with the DOS naming conventions, and that might be lowercase or uppercase. So in this situation, we can use the INAME flag and then match a name whether the characters matched exactly the case orientation or not. So let's, on that thought of not, let's see what happens when we use that particular flag, not, along with name. And in this particular case, let's look for things that are not ending in JSON. That's the JavaScript object notation, and there probably are lots of things that do not end in that suffix. And we've found a lot of them here underneath our home location. I'm going to clear the screen to make it a little bit more friendly for you to watch, and also demonstrate that equivalent to the word not is the exclamation point. So we can use that to really get the exact same results as we did with -NOT. Say we were interested in that, but we really didn't want to drill down that far into the directory hierarchy. We could use max depth. So max depth, and we could just say 1, starts at your indicated starting position, which in this case would be home NOS 120, represented by the tilde, but only look down one level below. So let's execute this, and we see that our list is different because now we only see those results that are available one level down. Let's change and take out that exclamation point so that we are now looking for exact matches. And we found that at one level down from our home, there are no files at all that end in JSON. We could adjust that to a 3. We still do not find any files underneath our home location that are JSON files. If we increase that to 5, now further down in that hierarchy below our home NOS 120, down 1, 2, 3, 4 levels here, we found a JSON file, and in many other locations as well. You may have guessed, or we may have discussed it already, that multiple criteria within the same command are treated as an implicit AND. What does that mean? That means that when you have more than one criteria, so let's go ahead and put in, I saw some cinnamon files in that last search. So we're going to look for anything that has cinnamon anywhere in the name and not a JSON file. So this means that both of these conditions have to be true together in order for the file to match and be returned by find. So we see cinnamon, 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 cinnamon all the way through, but none of these files returned have the JSON file extension. Another very important search that you would be interested in is finding all files of a certain type, and the types are F for file, D for directory, L for link, and then there are several others you can look in the man page. Those will be the ones that interest us. So we want to find just files that are hidden files. So those are the ones that start with the dot character. And we did find that in our home directory and sometimes below our home directory, there are several hidden files on this system. Because those hidden files are often used to contain configuration information, there are times that we would be interested in finding those. Another thing that we might find interesting is to look in a given directory. This time we'll look in /bin so that all our searches aren't in our home directory. We'll look down 2 levels and look for anything that is executable. You can see that there are many, many different scripts that are executable in the bin directory. Some of them will look familiar to you. Here's the bin sh. Here's the less command, the rm for remove. So that's very familiar. We'll take a couple more examples, and then you can try some yourself. So I'm going to look in my personal accounts documents directory and restrict it to 2 levels below there, finding files that are empty. Now, all these criteria, remember, are implicitly ANDed together, meaning all of the criteria must exist simultaneously. And I did find one file that seems to have matched that criteria. Let's just double check and confirm that fact. And we can see that indeed it is of 0 length. What happens though if we do not want things to be ANDed, but rather we want to use the OR? That is certainly a possibility. We can look for things that are of type file, restricting the search to 2 levels deep, and I want to find files that are empty or they are readable. So that is the -O criteria, and I'm going to add readable. So this construct should return for us both that one file that was empty and anything that is readable on the system. So we can just randomly look at one of the other files that was returned. To see that it was not of 0 length, but did match the criteria of being readable. One final example, and I find this one quite interesting. We will look in that documents directory again for files. This time, let's look for something that is greater than 4 megabytes. And it does look like we found a PowerPoint file that met that condition. We can again use the long listing to prove that to ourselves. Also recall that we can add to that ls command the H for human readable and actually see in the megabytes format that that file meets that condition. Let's add to this an exec. So some of you had a little bit confusion about the exec command. When you use exec, you just add to it any shell command that could normally be executed at the command line, and that command will then process one by one every file that was found by the previous part of the command. Excuse me, we'll start over here. So let's go back to the find command that was finding that file, and we're going to add exec and go actually remove that file. So we're going to remove. Remember, you have to use the double curly braces, a single space, backslash, and semicolon. My command is wrapping across the screen, but you know it's all one single command. Now, when I execute this, it does not look like anything happened, but now if we go back and execute that find again, there is nothing there because that file has been removed. So I passed exec, and then just the shell command that I want to execute, followed by a single space, the double curly brackets, which are replaced by one, everything that gets returned from the find command. In this case, there was only one file. A single space, backslash, semicolon. So let's, just practice, and you'll learn that there are lots of fun things to do with the find command.